Hey guys, welcome to the top 10. Let's walk to my top 10 most forgettable movies. Yes, I've done boring movies. I've done best and worst of different types of movies. Let's talk about forgettable movies. This, again, this is such a subjective list right here because what a movie might be forgettable for me might be extremely memorable for others and stuff. And yeah, like when you talk about like boring movies or forgettable movies or just, I don't know, not engaging and stuff, that's all personal takes and stuff. Like, a lot of people find Blade Runner a boring movie, and that's my favorite film of all time. Some people find 2001: A Space Odyssey a boring movie, but I think that movie's great. Some people might find a certain film very forgettable, and that could be another one of my favorites and stuff. But to me, these films, to me, are just so forgettable. And even when I think about them now, I barely can remember a lot of scenes that happened in them. So for me, these are my takes of the most forgettable films. Personal takes. All right, let's get to it. Number 10 is The Very First Rescuers. See, a lot of these films, all these films I'm going to talk about, I don't find any of them really good or bad. They're just forgettable. The First Rescuers is not a bad movie. It's actually a pretty decent film. And I love Bernard and Bianca as the two leads. They're really enjoyable, nice, and they rescue people and stuff. It's cool. But it's so forgettable. Especially because its sequel, it's so good. The Rescuers Down Under is a great sequel, and I'm glad The Rescuers Down Under is like getting this like almost like cult following, because even The Rescuers Down Under, when it came out, no one saw it, and it's now become like this underrated classic. But no one calls The Rescuers an underrated classic. It's just it kind of like, because I think this came out during the Disney Dark Age. It kind of like falls under like those like just kind of generic Disney films, and I agree. Like, it has a generic villain. The little girl's annoying. Some of its animation isn't grand and spectacle and stuff. And the story's like it's only like a 75-minute movie. It's nothing like huge or epic happens into it, and just it's not a film a lot of people talk about. It's just a very forgettable film, and I think a lot of people can agree with me on this. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just forgettable. So yeah. Number 9, Astro Boy. 2009's Astro Boy. You guys remember when this movie came out? Oh no, you don't remember? Me neither. I saw this movie when it came out in 2009, actually. And I still, for the life of me, can't remember anything that happened in this film. And there are films I've seen like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, saw it once, but I still remember the key moments and key characters. I can't remember a fucking thing that happened in this movie, and I saw this in theaters and stuff. And even when I saw it too, it was just so generic and just so eh. I never bothered to ever watch it ever again. And even now, for this list, I can't remember anything, and I could have easily just watched this movie yesterday to prepare for this video, but it's just not a movie I ever want to watch again because it's just so generic and just so forgettable. So, yeah, Astro Boy. Does anyone remember this movie? Number 8, The Time Machine, 2002. I love the original Time Machine with Rod Taylor. That is a great film. I love that movie. I think it's a great sci-fi film with a great lead character. The way they do the time travel, the way they do the what are they called? The Minox or something? No, not Minox. Morlocks or whatever. The creatures in the future, the way they do the practical costumes is great and stuff. I love the original Time Machine. So they did a remake in 2002, and I saw this movie before I even saw the original, and this has like Guy Pearce in it, and it's not a bad movie. There are elements that are actually really good, like when he's going through the times and seeing the world slowly end. That's really cool. But as soon as he gets into the future, it just becomes like this stale, generic, post-apocalyptic movie that just no one remembers and no one cares about. And I don't think this movie is actually that bad. I don't think it's that bad of a film, really. I think some of the makeup and costumes are good, and there's some ideas that really work. Just, it's not very memorable. And even now, when I think about it, like, I always think about that original film and the time machine and how he creates it and how he's going through different timelines. And that's a lot of the movies, him doing the time traveling. But in this remake, a lot of it's just him in the future, and that's most of the story. And just, I don't know, that's just not interesting to me. And just, I always found it just kind of again, just forgettable film. And not a bad film, just forgettable. Number 7 is Liam Neeson's Unknown. A lot of Liam Neeson, kind of like action films, kind of fall onto the category of forgettable and stuff. Like, there's so many movies he does, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was like, yeah, he did one on a plane, and then he did one on a train, and then he did, like, after he did Taken, he just started doing these, like, kind of, like, generic action films and stuff. But Cold Pursuit, I really liked it. That was actually legit awesome. That was a pretty good movie. Run All Night was kind of cool, but, like, Unknown is the most forgettable for me. Like, I remember Nonstop and Run All Night, and even the shitty Taken sequels. Those are bad movies, but I remember them. Unknown is one I barely remember. The only thing I remember is the story that he's like this agent that lost his memory, and that's all I really remember from it. And just nothing else I remember. It's just not memorable. I don't know. Like, I remember I liked Liam Neeson a lot in the film and other people, but just, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, just because it's just forgettable for me. So yeah, Unknown. Number 6, Brother Bear. See, this is a touchy one because I know there are some people who are subscribed to me that are huge fans of Brother Bear. I am definitely not one of them. Just, I don't hate Brother Bear. I never thought, I don't think it's that good of a movie, but I'm not like this hater of it. I always thought it was just this, like, very forgettable kids film, though. Like, I just never saw anything about it. Like, I thought the songs were just kind of the characters were a little, I always thought it was just, like, this very forgettable film, and, like, I remember I watched it a couple times back in my teens and stuff, and even when I was, you know, transforming, like, kid to a teenager, like, I watched it a couple times, and I just never wanted to watch it again, and just never saw anything about it that made me ever want to watch it again. Just, I don't know, I always thought these were just, again, just kind of generic films, forgettable, just, I don't know. Just never was a huge Brother Bear fan, so yeah. Number 5, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. I'll say this, like, okay, the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies aren't very good, but people remember that first Tomb Raider film. That was such a big movie, big, huge action film. It was stupid, ridiculous, but people loved it. Like, fans of Tomb Raider really enjoyed it, and just, like, it was just so silly and over the top and craziness, and just, but people remember that. Even now, people remember that Tomb Raider film. And yes, there was a Tomb Raider movie that came out a couple years ago with Alicia Vikander, and I guess you can kind of say that's forgettable too, because no one talks about it, but I will say it is forgettable. I will say that. But I think the sequel, Cradle of Life, to the sequel to the Angelina Jolie one, where Angelina Jolie came back with Gerard Butler, this is even more forgettable because nobody talks about this. Like, there are still those diehard Tomb Raider fans that talk about the Alicia Vikander movie, but nobody talks about this sequel. And again, I don't think it's awful. It's not good by no means. It's kind of like the same vein as the first film, the first Tomb Raider film. Just like these, like, silly, over-the-top action films with stupid plots, but, you know, it's mindless, kick-ass action adventure, and, like, it's probably the same. It's the same out of good as the first Angelina Jolie one, so they're just, like, okay films. But I always found that first Tomb Raider film with Angelina Jolie, that was memorable. Cradle of Life is just so forgettable. Just like, what happened again? Something crazy happened at the ending. Doesn't Gerard Butler end up being a bad guy? Like, what happened? What was it then? What's the Cradle of Life again? Like nobody remembers this Tomb Raider sequel. So yeah, just forgettable. Number 4, I'm going to go with two-punch Spielberg films right here for 4 and 3. I love Spielberg. Everyone knows he's my favorite filmmaker, but he's made some very generic films. Number 4, the BFG. No, not the big fucking gun. The Big Friendly Giant. Mark Rylance, a great actor, but this movie was just so forgettable. Like, I remember seeing it. I remember actually liking it when I saw it back in was it 2016? Yeah, 2016. I never watched it again, and I completely forgot all about it and just like what was it even about and stuff. Like, wait, what? What happened again? It was about a monster, right? Crazy monsters. Yeah, it's a little girl. They become friends. It's like Iron Giant, but not as good. Like, I don't know. Like, just forgettable. Just forgettable. Number 3, another Spielberg film, and another recent one, The Post. The Post is so forgettable. Like, I remember seeing The Post, and I was never a Post fan. Like, again, I love Spielberg, and I love a lot of his like dialogue movies. Like, Lincoln is one of my favorite Spielberg films, but The Post, I thought this would be like The President's Men or something cool like that about, you know, the newspaper industry or like the paper and stuff, or Spotlight or something like that. But this was just so boring. It was well acted. Like, both Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep are really good in the movie, and there's some great cinematography and great music, but it's just so boring to me. And it was so forgettable, and because I just didn't care about the story, I forgot all about this film. And now, even years later, after this came out, I think, when this come out in 2017? So after like 4 years, I couldn't tell you any character's name or even what happened in that film. Just completely blanked out of my mind. So yeah, The Post. Number 2, I'm going with another animated film, Over the Hedge. I know, people like this movie a lot. And I'm not saying it's bad. There's some funny stuff in it. Steve Carell's character is great. There's some funny shit in this movie, and the animation is really nice. But it's so forgettable. Like, I've seen this movie only once. Only once. And I couldn't tell you what happens. All I know is like there's this like grass hedge, and there's like this was Bruce Willis's character, was he a squirrel or something, or a fox, and he like breaks into people's homes and steals their food, and he's trying to teach these other people, and then you get over the hedge to get something. Then there's like this poacher guy catching animals. Like that's all I really remember. Like, it's so hard to remember things, and I don't remember a single funny joke, and there's a lot of things I just don't remember about this movie. And that's not a good thing, because when it comes to animated films, I remember a lot about them, because I love animated films. I really love animated films. And if an animated film doesn't hook me, and I, like, even the bad ones, like, I remember the jokes. Like, Food Fight is one of the worst animated films ever, but I remember every bad joke in that film. And Norman in the North, I still remember Rob Schneider doing his twerking and trying to save the environment. I remember that shit. But Over the Hedge, I don't remember a lot. And yeah, it's forgettable. Anyways, number 1. Now to get controversial. I need a drink. Number 1, Black Widow. Black Widow. I wanted to go with a current film for number 1 because that's the best ones to use, the best films to talk about, because they just came out. So if a film just came out and I already forget everything about it, that should just show you how forgettable it is. I think Space Jam, A New Legacy, and Cinderella, the new Cinderella movie came out. I think those are some of the worst films this entire year, and they were all going to make my worst of the year list. But I remember them because they're so fucking bad. I remember those fucking movies. Black Widow is not a bad film, actually. It's actually pretty decent. I'm already forgetting anything that happened in this movie because it's just so generic. And it's not a bad Marvel film. Like Iron Man 2, Thor the Dark World, Captain Marvel, those are bad films. Black Widow is not a bad film. It's just so forgettable. The jokes are forgettable. The character moments are forgettable. The action is forgettable. The only thing that was memorable was its twist ending because it was just so stupid, but it's just a forgettable film for me. I don't ever want to watch it again, and for the life of me, I can't remember what happened in like the entire first, second, and third act of the film. It's forgettable for me. I know people love it. That's great. Me, it's forgettable and generic. So yeah, that's my top 10 most forgettable films, in my opinion. So in the comment section below, please tell me, what are your guys' top 10 most forgettable films in your guys' opinion? Comment below, let me know. And as always, for this video, please subscribe to the channel and join the dark side.